Hey y'all, it's Angela here again at the Chicken Coop. Today we're going to talk about compost. I mentioned my compost pile a couple of times in my last couple of videos, so I wanted to talk to y'all a little bit about compost. Now there is a lot of videos on YouTube about compost and a lot of real intricate things that you have to do about compost that make this process so daunting, especially for like a new gardener or a gardener that's, they've been gardening for a while, but they've been buying their own compost and they haven't composted. So I'm going to talk to you about my method of composting. And then I'm also going to talk to you about something that would really, what I'm about to say might not apply to. Now, if you are living in a suburban area or an apartment and you have like a little composter that you're composting, and it's a container that you are composting things out on your deck or your patio or maybe even inside your kitchen, and you might have to be a little bit more particular about the things that you put in there and the amounts of things you put in there and the different types of things you put in there, so that you have a balance in your system, so that your system doesn't get real watery, start smelling foul, so that you have to have that ratio of like greens and browns and vegetable scraps, that you kind of have to balance that system out. My system is more of a natural system, something that you would do that's open to the air, that's open to the elements. It's outside, it's in a corner of my garden. So it's different. It's not like a contained system that you might have if you get an imbalance of that decaying matter, that you might have a smell or something if you're doing that in your kitchen or something, or in your garage, especially in the heat. But my system is not like that. And the reason why I do this system is because it is easy, folks. This is so easy. So I know that not everyone can do this system, and not everybody might do it on the scale that I do it on, and that's okay. But you can take this and do it just about anywhere if you have access to an area. That's what I would say. All right, so I'm going to kind of talk to you about I'm going to turn you around and show you my compost pile, and then we're going to talk about the things that I put in my compost pile, okay? So let me get you turned around here. All right, so this is my compost pile. And my husband and I have been doing this for several years now. And this is a corner of our yard, and it has these panels that we put in here. And originally, this was just these two panels right here, this one and this one. And you can see we have extended it one huge long panel and then another one, okay? All right, so the first thing I want to talk to you about, this is just an open air system. I don't cover this with a tarp or anything like that. It's just open to the elements. And so Mother Nature is breaking this down just like she would break it down on the floor of the forest, in your yard, etc. So the main there's probably two main components in here in my compost pile. Number one is leaves. I started out just by doing leaf composting. So my husband, of course, we have 5.5 acres, so we have a lot of leaves. And he has a little contraption that's on the back of his mower, and he goes around and picks up the leaves in the fall and makes a big pile. And when I say he makes a big pile, those leaves are about as tall as this white board, and they go the length of all these boards. Now when we started out, he would just do a little bit and put it in here, because he was kind of skeptical. He was just like, oh, I'm having to do all this extra work, because he does the yard work for me. So, but over the years, he's seen what this produces and the value that it has. And so he's become on board. And he was actually the ones that said, why don't we extend that a little bit? And I'm like, hey, if you're willing, I'd love it if you extended it, you know, but I just didn't want to ask you to do any more than you already do for me. So, leaves. So we pile up the leaves, okay? And then they get rained on, they, you know, get snowed on, they get hailed on, whatever happens to the leaves, that's what happens. Then secondly is, of course, y'all know we have a chicken coop, and we clean out our chicken coop and we put the manure in any kind of bedding or anything that falls down, leaves, old, you know, food, whatever ends up in the bottom of that chicken coop, ends up in this pile. All right, so that is the second component that's probably the majority of this. Now, the third component. Now, I will say we don't do a lot of scraps because we feed almost all of our scraps to our chickens. So those end up in into the chicken coop. But scraps that we do have are things like I talked to y'all about. See this right here. It was the tops of my garlic when I did my garlic. And see, you can kind of tell I also chopped those up to, you know, a couple of inches, an inch. Just chopped up the heads, the tops of my garlic, okay? Now, the other thing that we have, that was probably my onions actually, because I pulled my onions before I pulled my garlic. So that's maybe the tops of the onions. So then the second thing you can see is I shelled peas the other night. So these are all the husk to my peas because the chickens don't eat that. So what did I do? I chopped up, with some scissors, I chopped up those shells to my peas when I shelled my peas. I pulled up some plants. So there's some spent plants in here that they were not diseased or anything. So I put them in here. The onions, when I washed my onions and peeled my onions, there's my onion peelings right there. And then, of course, here is probably the tops to my garlic right here. And then our pastor volunteers at a food bank, and he brings food, but sometimes the food is even past feeding the chickens. So these are some squash that didn't make the cut to feed the chickens. Now, up there you'll see like a spent plant that didn't make it, and I just threw the whole thing in here. So there might be a couple of those in here. So this is my compost bed. Now today, I did some green beans. I snapped some green beans, and these are the ends of the green bean snaps. So I'm going to add these on here. Now, with stuff like the things that are dry, like my onions and my garlic tops, it really doesn't matter. But this is the way we work this pile. Any new material goes to this end, because this is what has not been on the pile the longest, and this will break down. And then as my husband turns it with the tractor or adds to it, we just keep moving it down the row. So the most composted material is always at this far end down here, the most composted material. Now the other day after I pulled my onions and I had that bed that I needed to add some compost to it, and I said, well, we're going to try to find some compost in here. Because if you look at it, it just looks like a lot of leaves. But I was able to find some good compost in here. And I used that. As you can see, there's kind of a hole right there. So those almost 8 loads of wheelbarrow came from right there when I dug it out to fill my garden beds. And y'all, this stuff is liquid gold. And that was one of the things that kind of, when I finally got my husband on board, was he saw how much we were saving money and how easy this was. It didn't take that much extra work to just make a pile and leave it there till we were ready to use it. So, like I said the other day, I used almost 8 wheelbarrowfuls of compost. If I had had to buy that compost, let's just say on sale, $9 a bag, you know, that is a lot of money. So that I saved, and it was just out of stuff that what I would have thrown away or ended up in a garbage pile. So this is what we do with our compost, and my compost is always working. I always have a compost pile going, and I'm telling you, we use this compost. So let me kind of show you, even though it looks like a lot of leaves on top, let me see if I can get in here and show you this. Like I say, we've used a lot of it. See how dark and rich that is? That is good compost. That would do anybody's garden a lot of good. See that black gold? That is some good stuff. You would pay a lot of money for that. And I'm telling y'all, you know, people can spend a lot of money. They'll have mulch. People bring in mulch, and there's nothing wrong with that. If this is all you can do, and that's what you want to do, that's fine. But I'm just telling you, this is how easy this is. My gardening, I try to do gardening easy. I need to do it cheap, and I need to do it easy. And this is one of the easiest things that you can do for your garden, is to make compost. And this is the easiest way. I know you're going to say there are lots of videos out there about the ratios of greens and browns and all that kind of stuff. You know, I don't do any of that. It just sits here and makes compost. I mean, how much easier can you do than that? And I'm sure, I'm not saying that those are bad methods. That is, when you're getting into the scientific, you know, way of how all this works, yes, you know, you might want to know all that. But some people, that is very daunting to hear all this, that you have to keep up with, you know, how much a ratio of greens and browns and all that stuff. And then because of that, they just don't do anything, because it just seems so too daunting to even do this task. But I'm telling you, it's easy, it's not hard, anybody can do it, and it will work. Even if you don't have chicken manure, if you just do your leaves, it will work. And you may live someplace where you don't have a lot of leaves. I'm telling you, there's been times that I've gone by and people have raked up the leaves in their yard. I have brought bags of leaves home, and my husband's just like, oh my gosh, we don't have enough leaves already. We live on 5.5 acres full of trees and stuff. And I'm like, well, you can't ever have enough good leaves. So I've been known to bring bags of leaves home. So, you know, I'm that crazy garden lady. So just wanted to show y'all my compost pile and show y'all just how easy it can be. So don't be intimidated. Get to composting. So thanks for visiting with me. Y'all don't look at my hair. This is what happens when you've been at home for 3 months and hadn't had a haircut, and you have extremely curly hair, and it is extremely humid in East Texas. This is what you get. So thanks for visiting with me. Y'all please like and subscribe my channel. I hope I'm giving y'all some things that make your gardening easier and fun and not so complicated. And please share it with your friends. So talk to y'all later. Bye-bye.